So this is the interior part of this technique. So first of all, I just want to showcase what this scene looks like, or rather the settings with global illumination. So we have a 4 bounce final gather solution, and the fake technique will never ever get to this result. I just want to stress that fact that for a scene like this that I have here, where just the camera is moving, I would be better off just creating a global illumination cache and render it, you know, because there are a couple of things that I need to do in order for this technique to work regarding how I use anti-aliasing and samples, but I will get into that later, of course. So that's essentially what I want to say, that you use this technique for things where it makes sense, and most of the times I would say it's for animated deforming characters or things that are moving around a lot, where you will have problem getting away from radiosity flicker. And outdoor scenes is a much better candidate for this solution. But the reason why I want to show this with this interior is because you will probably be kind of amazed on how well you can get it to look. It will never compete with this result, but if you never show this result for a client and you just show the fake result, they don't know really what they are missing. Kind of. But as I said, this is not a scene that is good for that solution. Of course, it's much better to just stick with global illumination inside of Lightwave. So first and foremost, that technique is not like multi-bouncing at all. It doesn't do any bounces at all. No color bleeding either. So it's more like a 1 bounce solution, and not even that. It's more like a backdrop only solution. But in this case we are in an interior, and backdrop only would not do a good thing here. So let's stick to just do a test render with 1 bounce here, and let's take a look at what that looks like, and also what the render time will be. So we'll hit F9, and I will pause the recording while it renders. Okay, so here we have that result. So it's a huge difference, of course, between these two, and I'm going to say that the fake solution will look better than this 1 bounce solution. I'll stick to that. So let's turn off radiosity now and actually do that fake solution. So let's bring up our processing window here, Control F8 to bring up this one. Let's add node pixel filter, and I just want to give a shout out here to Dennis Pontonier, who has written these tools. They are fantastic. The thing is that I'm kind of new on using these tools, so I'm going to set things up the way I know this will work. And if you guys see this, if someone of you guys see this video and knows that okay, that's wrong, you can actually do this or that, please let me know, because I want to be able to use this more efficiently, of course. So let's add the node pixel filter, and just double click to bring up the interface. And what I want to do here is to add a occlusion node. Let's start with that, because essentially what I'm going to do is to do that old school trick where you mix raw RGB with occlusion, and then you take that result and add that to a key light render in a compositing application, and you will get something that looks pretty good. And so I'll do the same thing, but I will do it here in Lightwave directly. So I bring up the occlusion node, and let's say set it to a 70 centimeter range, and I will bring that into radiosity color. Because I'm not going to render with radiosity, I have that little buffer here that I don't need, so I can actually replace that buffer with something that I need. So in order for that to happen, I need to double click on this pixel filter, and let's enable radiosity color, and I want to replace that buffer, and I want to of course check these guys as well. I will actually uncheck that. Now I'm going to do something that I haven't tried before, so I just uncheck that one. Okay, so let's close pixel filter, let's add the image filter, and sometimes it's hard to find it. Sometimes there we have it, node image filter. So again, here I want to add some buffer things, so I just search for buffer, and I want to add the render buffer node. So essentially what happens now is in the pixel filter I'm telling Lightwave that this radiosity color buffer will be something else, and in the image filter I'm able to actually call that radiosity color and drag it in here. For that to work, I need to double click on the image filter and enable radiosity color, and in this case let's just stick with these settings right now so we can test if this works. I will bring up the camera properties here. I will actually turn down all my settings here so it renders faster, and 1 there. Okay, so let's do a test render and see what this looks like. And I shouldn't have to pause the recording, it should render really fast. Okay, so this looks kind of weird. Something is happening, but not what I wanted. So let's bring up the node image filter and let's say replace buffer, and let's see what happens. Okay, same thing. So let's go back here and let's enable that one as well, and let's do an F9. Okay, so this one has this ray trace global 3D shading has to be enabled as well in the pixel filter. So let's go back here now and let's just add mix with buffer, and let's see if that works. Yeah, so these are the settings. Okay, so now I know that I get the occlusion out here. Of course very noisy, but I can see that it's working. So again, what I want to do here is to get the raw RGB as well. So I double click on this image filter, so we are now in the node image filter. So essentially, just to make sure that you guys get this, is that the only thing I do with the pixel filter is to replace the radiosity color with my occlusion node, and I make sure that I enable radiosity color and replace buffer and check these two guys out. So that's the only thing. The rest of the work is done in the node image filter. So let's enable raw color, which is the raw RGB color, and let's take that one in here instead, just to make sure that we get that one as well. Yep, so we get that one. Perfect. So what I do now, if I would have those two passes in a compositing application, I would actually, you know, multiply them. So to do that, I will just search for tool, or sorry, the mixer node. So we'll add I could use well, let's use D-Point's mixer node. So essentially I need my occlusion, which now is in the radiosity color, to be on the background layer, and then I add the raw color on top of that, and I set the blending mode to multiply. Now let's take a look at what that gives us, and we can actually see a small preview here. Now another thing to know is that when you work with this, it supports Viper. So let's bring Viper up here, So let's enable Viper, and right now, well, it can actually view that perfect. So I didn't have to. Usually you have to render a frame for Viper to pick things up, but in this case it just worked. So what we can see here, very noisy of course, is that we have some sort of shading going on, and this will actually become my fake global illumination light. So essentially what I want to do is to take this result and add it to the key light render. So again, if I take the color out here and bring it into this, we can see that that represents the key light render. Let's do an F9 just in case, so we can see that a little bit better. So there we have our key light. So as I said, what I need to do now is to add the result of this on top of the key light. So I'll duplicate this mixer node. So I take the key light into background color. Let me actually change these guys to straight instead, so it's easier to see where the arrows go. So the key light, the key light, which is the color, goes into background color, and then I take the result of raw RGB and occlusion into foreground color, and I need to set this one to an additive mode or blending, and let's say 25%, and let's bring that in here, and let's just render here in Viper quickly. Let's use Mosaic instead. So what you can see is that we are getting something here, and I want to clean this up a little bit, so I will go back to my camera settings here, and let's say 16. I will keep my shading samples low, or here, shading and light samples. Let's hit F9. So I will just pause the recording while this renders. So here we can see the F9 render took 36.9 seconds, and here we have Viper as well being updated, so it's cleaner now, which means that now with Viper it's easy for me to go in here and let's just play with this blending here, the opacity, let's say 50%, and let's just hit render, and it actually starts to look kind of good here. I will go up to 60, and let's do a render again. Okay, so this represents or is kind of similar to what we had with Final Gather, and of course I was stupid enough to close down my render window here, so I can't actually compare things right now. So what I will do now is just to go ahead and re-render those images so we have them all in here, so we can do some more comparison. Okay, so I have rendered this stuff now. So I went back to the camera and put that to 16 on the minimum samples, and on the shading samples and light samples I set them to 16 and 8, as you can see here, and rendered things out. So we have the 4 bounce Final Gather solution looking like this, 4 minutes and 46 seconds. Let's go to the 1 bounce Final Gather solution, which took 2 minutes and 20 seconds, and then let's take a look at the fake global illumination, and we are down to 2 minutes and 2 seconds, and it looks pretty good. And well, it's not as good as this one, of course, but it is better than this one. So faking global illumination can actually look better than a 1 bounce real global illumination. This one is a little bit too bright, I would say, this one is a little bit too bright compared to this one. So I should probably go back and turn that one down. So let's bring up the image filter, and let's bring up Viper again, and let's try to, let's say It looks pretty good there, so we want to compare to this one here. So this one is a little bit too bright, so let's say 55%. Uh, 50. Let's say 40 then. Just going to try. So now we're starting to lose a lot of light on the joystick here. So I would say that, well, this is the fake method, and I will actually stick to 55 or 50, sorry. So that's essentially the technique. So we have a pretty good render in less time, and this one will not suffer from any global illumination flicker. However, there is one thing that I would like to point out, and this technique currently, and this might be me doing something wrong here, so any one of you guys who knows this better than I do, please let me know, because this solution doesn't support adaptive sampling at all. So and that can be a downer, of course. So I view this method as something like a pre-production thing. Once you know kind of what you want, you throw in global illumination and whatever solutions you want, and well, this technique, doing it directly in Lightwave, if you bring this technique into a compositing application, you wouldn't have the problem of not being able to use adaptive sampling. I actually want to showcase that a little bit better. So let's take the radiosity color and just bring it into this one here. Let's take a look at that. So I will go back here now and set my render shading samples to 1 and light samples to 1. Because I want to approach this the way I usually do. So let's say adaptive sampling, and let's say 64 here, for example. And if I hit F9 to render this, we'll have to wait for the render, of course. So I'll just pause the recording while this renders. And here we can see the result of that. So we can see that, you know, because of the fact that we have only the key light here, adaptive sampling doesn't pick up on the fact that it should refine these areas as well. Okay, so that's why if I want to have all this stuff in camera, like I've had, you know, I need to use brute force sampling like this to get something that looks pretty good, or at least okay for pre-production. And another thing that I would like to add to this technique is the fact that you can do post depth of field as well, very much like if you would use Frischluft lens care in a compositing application. You can actually do that directly in here as well. So let's try that. So let's search for DOF. So here we have, again, this is Dennis node, and let me bring up the camera properties, because I have this scene is designed to be rendered with PR motion blur and the depth of field inside of Lightwave. So if I enable depth of field, we can see that I have envelope going on focal distance. So I can take that data directly in here and just make sure that I use the camera lens settings for focal distance. I'll bring this one up to very high, and I will say 8 on that one. Let's take color into color, and In this case I don't think that Viper will pick this up. Just in case, I will actually just hit save to save the scene. If it crashes right now, you never know. No, so I need to do an F9 render for Viper to update that depth of field data. So let's just do that. And again I will pause the recording. And it's black. Why is it black? Well, I forgot a very important thing. Let's double click on the image filter and enable depth. Okay, then I take the depth here, not the normalized depth, but this one here, and let's bring that one into depth here. That should work much better. Let's see if Viper picks that up. No, it doesn't. I have to render that as well, so let's hit F9. Okay, 2 minutes and 1 second, and let's take a look at that. Oh, pretty good depth of field, right? So this fake solution is starting to look pretty good, I think. Of course I could use this depth of field trick even though I'm not using this fake global illumination trick. So this is just a bonus for you guys. And I really like his dispersion node as well, so let's add that to fake chromatic aberrations. And I'm going to do crazy things with this because I'm using a crappy camera, so I want to have a lot of bad lens distortion. So let's say 25% on that, and let's see if Viper picks that up. No, it does. Yeah, it does. So I actually I didn't have to render that to see it. Crazy. Let's say 60% just to be, yeah, this is a really bad camera. If your lens is doing this, you should, you know, get a new lens or a new camera if you can't change the lens. Yeah. Well, I think this concludes this interior part of this tutorial. Sorry guys, I'm kind of tired. I've been working the whole day figuring things out, so I'm kind of, but I really want to share this information with you guys because I think it's amazing tools that we have in Lightwave today, thanks to new tech of course, and also third-party developers like Dennis Pontonnier. He's done some great stuff, as you can see here. So in the next video I will take this technique and throw it into a outdoor environment scene, not a fantastic outdoor environment scene, but something that will tell you that this technique is more for those kinds of shots rather than interiors, even though this looks pretty good. So cheers guys, and I hope you guys like this tutorial. And as I said before, if you see this tutorial and you know a bunch of tricks with Dpon's image filter, pixel filter stuff, especially for, you know, being able to use adaptive sampling to refine things, please let me know. It would be cool if you guys could do some tutorials as well to share your knowledge, because it's important for the community that we keep doing that stuff. So see you guys in the next video.